Live from the slightly twisted deck bar, it's the Poojie Podcast with Justin Lemie.
The Poojie Podcast is proudly sponsored by Cimarron Golf Club, located in Jacksonville, Florida, off County Road 210, just west of St. John's Parkway.
Very excited to be joined by this next guest. A really cool occupation and a really cool career path. Works with Team Penske as the front tire changer on the number 2 car for Brad Keselowski. So thanks for being here, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always interesting to talk to people in this sports world. Obviously, things are a little bit weird right now. So just kind of cool talking with individuals just about their careers and what they do. So take me a little bit through what you've done so far, I guess, in the NASCAR world, maybe what got you into it.
Yeah, so just like pretty much most kids, I just followed what my dad was doing. He raced at our local track up there, Wall Stadium in New Jersey, and I just was going there every weekend. That was kind of what my life became, and it just rolled into me starting racing cars when I was 5 years old there in New Jersey with quarter midgets and go-karts and stuff like that, and just kind of turned into a profession the older I got. And out of high school, I got a job working for some different people up there, that big name New Jersey guys, the Fluids and Doug French, and my cousin and I started a fabrication shop. But at 19, it was kind of the time to leave the nest. And just like if you are a country music singer, you move to Nashville. If you want to be an actor, you move to Los Angeles. If you want to race, you kind of move to the Charlotte, Mooresville area. So I had an opportunity to move here through a couple friends that had bought a house down here and moved on their couch. And really my goal was to try to get a job working on the cup level, which is, the highest level. By the time I was 23, I kind of wanted to work my way up through maybe some of the other series, ARCA, Truck, Xfinity, try to get a job there. But the phone call came from Roush. I was kind of just driving around knocking doors down. And 3 months after I moved here, I got an opportunity to go work for Roush Fenway with driver Jamie McMurray. It was the Crown Royal 26 car when I was 19. And I spent 4 years at Roush, and like I said, it was kind of like my college education there. From the time I was 19, I was 22, I was there, and I went in there knowing how to, you got me, sorry. I went in there knowing how to fabricate pretty well and kind of had a good understanding of short track racing. And I left there, I felt like, with my bachelor's degree and in pretty much everything that comes with working at that level of sport. I wanted to be a tire changer, and it kind of was in a weird transitional period where they were wanting to hire more college athletes to do that job, and it was a little bit harder for someone like me that worked full-time in the shop to break into that. So it was like, what that looked like trying to get onto that side of things was, going out at lunchtime, staying late, kind of doing everything on your own to try to get that opportunity. And still they would kind of take kids that kind of had more football backgrounds and didn't have a 40 or 50 hour week fulfillment in the shop, because they didn't want to take away from that. So I had to kind of look for opportunity somewhere else, and the opportunity rose with Storthouse Racing in 2011. So I went over there as a tire changer, and actually got a job working in the wind tunnel. They had a pretty extensive wind tunnel team, Aero Group they called it. So I would work in the wind tunnel and fabricating, building stuff to run through that 4 days a week. And then I would travel with actually Tony Stewart. I got on the road with Tony's car as a mechanic and as their backup tire changer, kind of shadowed all their guys. They were probably the hottest pit crew at the time. They still are. All those guys are pretty much still together on the 4 car with Kevin Harvick. And really learned a lot that year. We actually ended up winning the championship that year with Tony. We tied with Carl Edwards, and it was. I mean, that would kind of change the sport. That whole deal. I feel like that's why we're at the chase format we're at today, to try to make it exciting, like it was a Homestead. So that was really cool to be a part of. And the next year, I got a deal starting as a starting tire changer for Danica. That's when she started, and then did that. Went to Newman's car, who was the other teammate the year after that. And then it was kind of time for me to move on. There was opportunities to make more money, right? You would think of that one as kind of your rookie contract as a tire changer. And I was shopping around and got an opportunity to go to Penske for a little bit more money, a little bit more opportunity. and have been there for the last 7 years. Been with Blaney for 6 of them, and then this year our teams got shuffled around, and now we're with Brad, and been lucky to win 2 Xfinity championships, a whole bunch of races, and now we're chasing a championship with Brad if we ever get back racing this year.
You mentioned working with Keselowski and Blaney and previously with Stewart. So it's not just been working at the NASCAR level. It's been working with some of the superstars in the sport. So that's had to be a cool experience for you. And like you mentioned, the championships, and that's an awesome experience. But take me through what it's like being in the pits during one of these races, the intensity, maybe some of the stress levels, things like that.
So yeah, that's what's funny is we haven't been in practicing or working out or doing any of that stuff for about a month now or more, and this is about the time where your body starts to ache, because it's really, when you're in season, you do so much to take care of yourself. It's 38 weeks, and at this level where I'm at, being 32 years old, I'm not one of the younger guys anymore. So you learn what workouts to do, what kind of tightens up. Everybody's got something different. Like, it's my right shoulder and my hips that I need to work on. So from a physical standpoint, that's what I'm not getting under heavy weight. I'm kind of to the point in my career where I'm sustaining what I have and working on preventing injury. But that's what I was saying. It's so funny that my body's starting to hurt, but my brain is all right because the stress levels are so much lower. Because it is it's a very mental job. As physical as it is, it's more mental. And it's just a lot of work. And to get to this level, to even be a good tire changer is hard enough. To be on a top 5, top 10 car every week, it takes a lot of mental toughness. And Penske gives us a lot of tools to work with. We have a full-time personal trainer. We've got 3 coaches. We've got an athletic director. We've got a guy that breaks down film. We got 2 guys that work on all the equipment. They fly us in a team plane, and so they take care of us at a real high level. And then we have also every week we have pretty much a sports psychologist that comes in every other week, and we meet with him. And they do stuff to make sure that you are set up. You have every tool you need to be successful, right? So the excuses are eliminated.
Yeah.
So that's when you're at a race and you're running up front, that's when the mental part comes into it, because it's just like practice. The car stops in the box. There's the 5 lug nuts. The motions are all the same. The motions of your body are all the same. The emotions are what's different, right? So learning to harness that is something that takes maturity, and definitely takes a different approach. You have to take a different approach to, but it's something that I've been able to harness and to use also when I go drive my own race cars, and it helps me to maybe be a little bit more mentally tougher than the competitors.
And it sounds like they really treat you guys as pretty much just athletes, just like they would the drivers as far as the pit crew goes. And it's interesting you mentioned breaking down film and sports psychologists and personal trainers. And I think a lot of people that just view on TV, they see the pit crew come out, and it's a 17-second, whatever, pit stop. But at the end of the day, the weeks leading up to these races, or the days leading up to these races, there's a lot that goes into I guess being a top tier team. And there's an obvious difference that, some of the best drivers have the best pit crews because their times in the pits are far less than others. And that can kind of help them advance positions. And I know you said it's been a little bit of a struggle, I guess, with the physical fitness aspect of it, but the stress levels are a lot lower now. I know you mentioned to me you recently started a family, so I'm sure that's been pretty nice for you being at home a little bit longer and being able to spend some time with them. So I guess looking for those little silver linings during this time, being able to spend some more time at home. And then towards the end of what you said there, you mentioned that you drive your own cars and that you race a little bit as well. Take me through kind of what you do as a race car driver in your own time.
Yeah, so being on the road 38 weeks a year makes it hard. You can't really go run at your local short track on a Friday or Saturday night and then be at 100% mentally and physically to go compete on Sunday. So what I do is it's called what it is. It's indoor racing. So they run Atlantic City, Boardwalk Hall, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Syracuse. There are these arenas in the winter that they set up a track, and we race midget cars around them. So it's actually pretty crazy, and since it's in the winter there, you get everybody from every different discipline in the Northeast. All the top Northeast drivers are there, and it's really the best situation for me to be able to race against the highest quality competitor in my time off. So through December and January, when our downtime with traveling on the NASCAR side is, my indoor racing ramps up, and it helps me because my friends that are racing every week in New Jersey, they're not racing, so they come and help. And then, a lot of the guys that win 30 races a year up there and race for a living on the short track circuit are in there competing. So to be able to go in there, we've been very successful. We're second on the all-time win list in just 5 years there, and won a championship, and we've won. We hold the track record at 2 different tracks. So we've been super successful with that car, and to do it against that quality competitor, really, it's the best situation for me to be able to race at a high level myself. So that keeps me sharp because, when my tire changing days are done, I'd like to go back and do some racing myself. And, as people look at it like, kind of like baseball, right? If you play A-ball and you don't really make the big leagues, you're just done. But that's not how it is. You can still go race. You can even make a living racing at a local level. NASCAR is not just the only the option.
Yeah, there's a lot of levels to racing for sure. And I know especially here in Jacksonville, just an hour south of us, we have Daytona, and I know they have a lot of events outside of just the NASCAR level. They have, the indoor track or the infield track that they utilize a lot, and different types of cars. So have had the experience of talking to some friends that are involved in that, which is always pretty cool. And recently with this whole coronavirus situation, NASCAR's kind of taken to the iRacing level. Take me a little bit through iRacing, if you get involved in that at all, or what your thoughts are there as far as maybe how realistic it is for some of these drivers.
Yeah, I've had that conversation quite a bit, actually, here in the last couple of weeks. I have a iRacing rig that I built and kind of got. It's probably not top tier, but it's up there. It's the nicest stuff I can get for sure. And it's as much as you want it to be real, and it has realistic characters. It is a game. There are things that are easier on it, and there are things that are harder. First and foremost, I feel like the hardest thing is to stay focused because there's no real life consequences. So if you're running a 100-lap race and there's no actual consequences, it's easier to take risks, right? But a lot of those races that you watch, it's about the guys that kind of hang out and are patient, and then they're there at the end. It's easy to rush moves and do different things, get yourself in trouble. Then all of a sudden you're in the back, and then you just keep wrecking once you lose track position. The things that are different, you don't get the feel. You have a certain feel. You kind of don't. You drive a race car with your hands and your feet, but you kind of feel it out with your butt. Is kind of the weird way to say it. Like if you've ever slid in the snow or anything like on a gravel road with your car, you can kind of feel the grip levels changing with your whole body, not just your arms and your legs. But with iRacing, you don't get that feel, so it's more visual cues. So you kind of see the car getting sideways, and just like anything else, just like any sport, it's about the amount of time you put into it. But NASCAR's done such a great job, and iRacing's done a great job, kind of giving these guys a platform, giving the teams a platform to still sell sponsorship and keep stay engaged with fans, and more so than any other sport's been able to because of that iRacing platform.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to be able to sit back and watch on a Sunday when I would typically be watching the real race or the fourth round of a golf tournament. It's been nice to be able to sit back and just enjoy some sort of sport. And it's amazing to me how realistic on TV it looks from the fans' perspective. But like you mentioned, there are a lot of different factors from the driver's perspective that probably changes the feel of it a little bit. So I guess one of my last questions for you, in a lot of sports, a big topic is rivalries. A lot of what gets fans up and moving in the morning for their big game is those rivalry games, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, whatever it is. What's your stance, I guess, or maybe some experience with rivalries within NASCAR between drivers, between teams? Is there anything like that at that level in NASCAR?
Yeah, I think there are quite a bit, but the difference. So there's two, I think, main differences that we have than most other sports have. The first one is if you're in Jacksonville, you're a Jaguars fan, right? We don't have a team or a driver that's specific to a city. So as humans, it's easy to get behind your city and be like, it's us versus them, right? Where you're just kind of picking a guy. And if that guy does something to piss you off one week, maybe you're not with him 100%. So it's a little bit harder to align yourself, I think. And with that, you know, it's like New England and New York, right? They're not Boston and New York. They're close to each other. They hate each other, or you know, the two teams in LA, the Clippers and the Lakers. You know, they're right there, so they're obviously going to have animosity. You pick one side or the other. So that's a little bit of a factor that we don't have, right? The other thing that we have that makes it challenging to keep rivalries for a long time is that we all travel together. It's like a circus, right? So even if you're pissed off at somebody, if you see them every day, eventually you're going to get over it. That's just how it is. Where if you don't see them for a couple months or you don't talk to them or something, it festers and it becomes something more than it actually is. And that's something that we don't have, but there has been great rivalries that have, that built this sport. The number one thing that you can't do, and that I feel like sometimes we try to do as a sport, is push it. You can't create a rivalry. It has to create itself over time. And, I think Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin versus Joey Logano, or maybe like a Kevin Harvick and a Kyle Busch. But the other problem is, and it's something that we've seen, come up this week, you are representing not just yourself, you're representing Fortune 500 companies, you're representing a lot of different things other than just your own brand. And that makes it challenging to actually act a way that you want to, or that maybe sports teams can act. You can't do that because you're not representing just yourself. There's a lot of other factors that you have to think about. And yeah, that makes it tougher for us, but still the racing is where it all starts.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to ask because there's been some great footage after races and during races of maybe a driver throwing a helmet in the heat of the moment, or some words being exchanged in the pit area after a race, whatever it may be. But that totally makes sense. Like you mentioned, kind of traveling together and constantly seeing each other, and everyone's driving style is different. And I guess just like in any other sport, those kind of differences might kind of cause some of that tension here and there. But it's also funny you mentioned the Fortune 500 companies, and like we see at the minor league baseball level, a lot of people like to latch on to certain teams just simply based on the team name or the logo. And it's funny at the NASCAR level, it's always cool to be able to look and see, wow, that sponsors with this driver. That's a really cool looking car. That's a cool color scheme, something like that. Or for me personally, Eric Amarola, he went to UCF. He drives a black and gold car now. So it's easy for me to kind of get behind him and at least just identify with something similar in his past. So it's cool to kind of be able to cheer on those things that you might be able to connect with from your own personal life with someone else's personal life. So it's interesting how that works. And I guess in your experience, just kind of a more opinion question for you, what are your favorite 3 tracks, I guess, to go to as a part of the pit crew?
So I think that I've had this question a lot and I've thought about it. One place that I really, really like to go, I think it's the racetracks themselves. I think there's so much more to the city you go to. It's a couple other things, but I like Indy a lot. And the NASCAR race in Indy has kind of struggled the last couple of years as far as fan attendance. And when there's not many, when there's a lot of empty seats, it kind of takes away from, as a competitor, when the place is full, I think you see a little bit more come out of each guy. But Indianapolis for me is just such a cool place, such a cool city. There's so much history. I always kind of get get a little bit of like the hair stands up on the back of my neck when going to that place. And then other places that I like to go, I really like going to Watkins Glen. And I like going to Sonoma. I think the road courses are cool. Watkins Glen is hard as a picker guy because you're doing backward stops. And that's always fun because it's the only place that you go where you do everything kind of backwards. So that breaks up the monotony. And I do like Sonoma a lot too because it's such a cool place. And last year, my wife and a couple of our friends went out there and kind of took a mini vacation. So I think those are my 3 favorite. But as far as just racing and my favorite race of the year, I think the Bristol night race is obviously one of the really cool ones. It kind of feels like an old school feel. And now that Martinsville's kind of ends at night, you get that old school Saturday night short track feel. So those are ones that I look forward to.
And it's funny you mentioned Bristol. That was actually one of my favorite tracks to watch growing up. Getting into NASCAR was just, I guess, how unique it was with how short it is. And it's always fun to watch, like you said, under the lights too, when you're able to see those lights glisten off the hood and the paint job. And it just really makes it feel like a cool experience from a viewer standpoint. And I'm sure even more enjoyable from a pit crew standpoint being in your position. But Ryan, I really appreciate you being here and doing this, taking your time to give me some information on what it's like being in motorsports and the life of a pit crew member for a top-tier team. And best of luck to you moving forward. And let's hope we get back on the track here soon, not virtually, but actually in real life, and maybe get some racing done here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me. I need to come out to a game when I'm there.
Yeah, come down, visit me and Tom Snyder, your boy from New Jersey, the Manasquan area. So come down and visit, and we'll have to get you out to a game, all right?
Appreciate it.
All right.
Be sure to follow our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast streaming services, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel to check out unique video elements for each interview.